what happens on the field and what went wrong. And our man Max Chadwick joining us. Max, always good to see you. Let's start with what everybody is talking about since Saturday afternoon, FSU, where everybody's got a theory, but I know in watching the game and studying it, you saw a great deal that maybe we didn't. What did you see?
First of all, Paul, thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to be on with you all season. And really, what I saw from Georgia Tech, at least in that game, was a defense that really, really improved. Last year, they had one of the worst run defenses in the country, hired a new defensive coordinator in Tyler Santucci, and their run fits all game were phenomenal. And honestly, I can't blame Florida State for the game plan because, in fact, my own preview of that game said, hey, Florida State should be able to run this ball as much as they want to in this game. They couldn't really do that. So I was really impressed. I think Tyler Santucci, the new defensive coordinator, he was the MVP of that game, in my opinion. The one thing I wasn't surprised by was the fact that Georgia Tech's option offense gave Florida State a lot of issues because last year, Florida State going east to west really struggled. Now, when they go north-south on the defense, they do really well. But when you get outside on them, they could have some issues, and you saw that in that game.
Max, let's move ahead. Staying in the same city that Georgia Tech resides in, UGA dealing with Clemson this weekend. Everybody's got a different view of where this game lies. What about yours?
Yeah, I think Georgia will win this game pretty handedly, probably, because I think Clemson's offense is still a little bit of ways away from really competing at the top of the nation like they used to be in years past. But I am excited about this Clemson defense against Carson Beck and this Georgia offense, specifically the Georgia offensive line, which is one of the best in America, against Clemson's defensive line, which is also a top 10 unit in the country as well. So I'm excited to see guys like Tate Ratledge and Dylan Fairchild, the two excellent guards for Georgia, go up against a rising superstar in defensive tackle Peter Woods from Clemson. So I'm excited for that matchup, but I do think the Bulldogs will win this game at the end of the day.
There are a couple of other really important games, probably none more important than the one in Gainesville, where everybody knows the schedule, everybody's heard the spin. What about what's going to happen on that football field between Miami and Florida in the Swamp?
I mean, you mentioned it. This game is critical for the two coaches on the sidelines of this game, Billy Napier and Mario Cristobal, both of them kind of entering the year on the hot seat. So they both desperately want to start off the year with a big-time victory over a rival. I think Miami's going to win this game. I think Miami's going to win the ACC as well. I really like what they did in the transfer portal this offseason. It is a raucous environment in the Swamp, so I think that will give them some issues. But I think Miami's too talented in this game, both offensively and defensively. They'll come out with a slight victory over Florida. Don't think it'll be a blowout, but I do think the Hurricanes are going to win this game.
Let's talk bigger picture than well, one more game before I lose track. I want to talk about Notre Dame taking on the Aggies Saturday night in Kyle Field. What about it?
That one's really intriguing because there's a couple things to really look out for in this game. The one I'm really excited by is you have the Duke head coach from last year and Mike Elko going up against the Duke quarterback from last year, Riley Leonard. Now, Mike Elko, of course, the Texas A&M head coach. Riley Leonard, of course, the new Notre Dame quarterback. If there's anyone who knows how to defend Riley Leonard, it's the guy who coached him for 2 years at Duke, who's also, by the way, comes from a defensive background as well. So I'm excited about that. I think Notre Dame will ultimately win this game. I have it only as a 1-point game, though. So I think Notre Dame will win this game because they have an excellent defense. I'm excited about that defense against Connor Wegman, who right now is the #1 quarterback in the draft, according to our lead draft analyst, Trevor Sikkema. So it's a very interesting game from a lot of angles, honestly, but I do think Notre Dame will come out with a slight victory in that one.
Max, last game before we get to the bigger picture in the playoffs, and that's Sunday night. We already talked to Brian Kelly. He knows how important this game is against Southern Cal. Lincoln Riley's had a rough offseason. What about it?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's kind of rough for me to follow up Brian Kelly as an unbelievable guest for you guys, and I don't know if I could live up to that hype. But I am excited about this one because really the big storyline is how do you replace the last two Heisman Trophy winners, right? Caleb Williams for USC 2 years ago, Jaden Daniels from LSU last year, both in the top 2 overall picks in the NFL draft as well. Miller Moss, Garrett Nussmeier, the new quarterbacks now. I'm high on both of them. I think they're both going to have really good years. But really, how does the defense handle it? Because last year, USC's defense was the reason why it lost 5 games. LSU's defense was the reason why it lost 3 games as well. Both those teams probably would have been playoff teams if the defense matched the offense, right? So I'm excited to see this new look USC defense. And I'm excited to see if the LSU defense improves at all, because really that was the biggest reason why they struggled so much last year.
Max, we're about to be done with playoff predictions after this weekend. Those are out the window, but you have one out starting with Georgia. You have Ohio State, Miami in there, Arizona, very interesting pick, Oregon, Ole Miss, Texas, Alabama, was wondering what happened to them. Penn State, Missouri, and Liberty. Let's talk about the SEC schools, because when you include 4, you're leaving out a couple that people are curious about. Forgetting Georgia, we know about that, but Ole Miss, Texas, Alabama, and Missouri. Actually, do you have 5 in there? I'm trying to do my math.
I do.
Yeah, okay. I was wondering. I was never good in that. Let's talk about everyone other than Georgia, since we've already mentioned them. Alabama in particular. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, they have some question marks. Starts in the receiving core with kind of inexperience in that room. Now, I do think they have talent there, especially a true freshman coming in, Ryan Williams, who's an absolute speedster. I think will kind of fill that role that Isaiah Bond had last year. And in the secondary, they have some question marks as well. But you still have Jalen Moreau, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, maybe the biggest big play threat at quarterback in the country, with Kalen DeBoer, who's one of the best offensive minds in the sport, right? So that partnership is going to be really explosive. And Alabama, in my opinion, has the best offensive line in college football as well. So I still think Alabama will be good enough to make the playoff. I don't think they're a top 5 team in the country like they continuously were under Nick Saban, but I do think they'll be good enough to make the playoff this year.
And is the issue on the defensive side of the ball in the secondary?
I think it is. Yeah, I think they have some really nice pieces in that safety room. Like Keon Sabb, the Michigan transfer coming in, is a really, really good player. But that outside corner room right now, you have a couple transfers coming in, Damani Jackson and Deshaun Jones, and then like 3 true freshmen that are going to be seeing a lot of time at outside corner as well. It's just a lot of inexperience. And the fact that you don't have maybe the greatest defensive coach of all time and Nick Saban coaching them up, it's another reason to be a little pessimistic about that defense. But I think they'll figure it out as the season goes on, though.
Max Chadwick. By the way, who do you have winning it all?
I got the Ohio State Buckeyes winning it all this year. I know Georgia fans were mad at me last year when I came on your show and said that Michigan was winning it all, and hopefully I can get it right again by having Ohio State win it all. But I do think the Georgia Bulldogs are right there in terms of winning all this year. But I'm going to go with Ohio State for the second straight Big Ten champion.
Yeah, if anybody gets mad about that, they do not know what Ohio State has on the roster. Max, thanks so much. Can't wait to talk to you next week to review the first week of the season. Max joining us.